Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shaman's Way podcast. As most of you probably know through previous podcast episodes or our newsletter, we are launching a Daily Tools for Shamanism course on March 1st. Today is actually the last day for the early bird discount, so if you want 25% off of that course, click the link in your podcast reader or go to shamansway.net, and it should be pretty easy to find the course details there. The course will cover a lot of things that you'd typically expect, including drums, rattles, things like that. It'll also have some things that you might not have thought of, including portable altars, house clearing, and such. So we do hope to see you there. And if you're listening to this by February 13th, you have today left to get the 25% off early bird discount. And now, without further ado, here is Kriket with episode 135 on the Medicine Wheel South.
Well, hello to my constant listener. Welcome back for another round about the medicine wheel. And welcome back to my semi-constant listener. As usual, I wonder what brought you back to Shaman's Way, and to brand new welcome to my brand new listener. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kriket, and my website is shamansway.net, and welcome to the podcast. Today we are discussing the medicine wheel South. South has been a place on the wheel that has been a constant companion for me. I know to my constant listener, and perhaps to you as well, my semi-constant listener, I have spoken about South and shared with you some of the teachings of the warrior and some of the teachings that occur on the path of South. We're going to take a little detour today and talk about the subtler aspects in comparison a bit to the other parts of the medicine wheel. But I really want to remind you about the hearth, about what South means in regard to the fire. Remember always, we may be walking the trails in the footprints of our grandfather. All trails must lead back to camp, where we find our grandmother's fireplace. Our grandmother's fireplace. It's a really powerful thing. In the old way, no one asked you where you were from. They asked you, "Where is your grandmother's fireplace?" The fireplace is a symbol of our connection to the land. In ancient times, scientists, philosophers, perhaps even the Magi, divided matter into 4 basic elements. You know what they are: air, fire, water, earth. You've heard those 1,000 times. It has been said that the elements are indeed the building blocks of life. A scientist and a philosopher named Empedocles set this foundation for science in Sicily during the 5th century BC, believe it or not. Empedocles belonged to the tradition of root cutters, which means that he was a herbal magician and healer, and likely was taught by a grandmother along the way, and who was indeed a witch or a healer or a plant medicine woman on the other side. He defined the elements as roots, not only as physical substances, but in his writings he also described them as spiritual essence. He went so far in his traditions to name the elements of air, of course, is Zeus, and fire is Hades, and water is Nestis. We also know her as Persephone. And earth is Hera, and Hera is akin to Demeter, the goddess of the hearth. And what is the hearth? The hearth is the fire that's the center of the world. A century later, Aristotle assigned properties of hotness and coldness to the elements, which then were followed up, a little more investigated, with Rudolf Steiner. The air was hot, moist; fire, hot, dry; water, cool, moist; earth, cool, dry. Mystics throughout the ages have recognized these elements as the 4 spiritual modes of being. My tarot readers, you know that the swords are the air, and the wands are fire, and the cups are water, and the pentacles are earth, whatever. We also find these elements in astrology. So the air signs, the Gemini, the Libra, the Aquarius; fire, the Aries, the Leo, the Sagittarius; the water, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces; earth, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. alchemy, Hermeticism, Gnosticism. They too hold teachings of the four elements. We can see them even in Jung, his first four personality types: thinking, air; intuiting, fire; feeling, water; sensing, earth. Even the Myers-Briggs personality test shares this fourfold concept. The idea nature and self are equal. The 4 seasons of the years can be compared to the 4 stages of human life: birth, growth, maturity, death, decay. We can bring the 4 elements as dimensions of psychic and spiritual growth. Jung referred to them in the Northwest order, in the Northeast freedom, in the Southeast ego, and in the Southwest social. Those were the 4 aspects that the archetypes move through in the creation of our psyche and the growth of our psyche. If you know which elements to call upon and how to connect with them, I think that it is easier to manage what life throws your way. And I believe that the connection to the natural world helps us respond more consciously instead of reacting from an unconscious perspective. The north, in this I see the mountains, the rocks, the permanence of the earth. It is representative of order, of that which is of its own force, but is not chaotic in its nature. It is a natural and slow dynamism. That's almost an oxymoron, isn't it? The rock and the soil are the body of the earth, as our flesh and bone is body to ourselves. I see this as a connection between the work of the material. The lessons of the North are that of practicality, patience, applied knowledge, symbolism, rituals, ceremony. To me, these imply things one learns or does to influence the order patterning. East. In this I see the winds, the gentle breeze to the tornado, that polarity in the force from the gentle to the severe. I see it representative of the breath of spirit and of inspiration, creativity, and sudden insight. Air may fan the flames, but it can also caress and soothe the skin, and it can tear out from anger in a loud voice or tear out with an angry windstorm. The lessons of the East can be inspiration, creative ideas, knowledge abstracted from chaos, organization from disorganization, mental work, psychic work, philosophies, awakening to that higher self, that higher being, that higher intellect. And could organization from disorganization be transformative energy of inspiration or spirit? The tornado can just as easily undo the permanence of that has been established, and many of you have survived tornadoes. Many of you know this far better than an abstract word on a piece of paper that I've written, because I really don't know what a tornado feels like. But I also see the shifting of the winds as the tidings of change and that whisper of altercation. So what then is west? Lakes and oceans, pools and springs, revealing themselves as they rise from deep within the earth. Gentle and cool, hot and gushing, swift and rushing, or impenetrable and unfathomable. Water hides full new worlds within it. It carries you on journeys, borrowing a line from a Rush song, when the waters take you home. The water is our blood, hormones, our life. Water is our basis, and to that we connect more deeply with the earth than with most elements. We can be gently enveloped by the waters, either cooled by it from the heat or soothed and relaxed by its warmth. Earth balances with its minerals, wind the inspiration, fire, the drive of the passion. And the lessons of the West, well, they could be introspection, inner knowledge, shamanic journeys, deep psychic work, emotions, dream states, releasing, attunement, self-tides. North is earth, order, wisdom, and intellect. East is air, inspiration, creativity, spirit. South, fire, dynamic, catalyst, life flame. West, water, discovery, psychic, shadow. East is associated with where? On the winds of change. Of course, it could be the place of beginning, which most definitely is, where the sun rises, and it is the place where the soul enters the land of the living. Air is fresh in the morning sunrise, clear and not clouded yet with the day. The place of inspiration, illumination, sunrise, clarity, clear morning air, the newborn. West is associated with water and day's end and autumn. Water runs downward into the west like the setting sun. I believe that the fairy and the like became thought of as dwelling in the west. They, like the sunset upon land, water was a line or a recognition of the land in between, the betwixt and the between. We seek to rest at the end of the day and trace our dreams, which is why dreams are also placed. Bear is commonly held as a guardian of the West because bear dreams and hibernates. Oh, you sneaky sleeper. And the bear people who have no claw marks or have skeletons which show no marks of mauling. Those are the people they've uncovered in archaeological digs who have a deep relationship with the bear. Bravest of the hunters would waken the bear from their dens or enter into their dens, but it would be after days of fasting and days of prayer and days of beseeching the spirit to allow them to take the life of this bear. And in that relationship with the bear, when they've uncovered the skeletons, there are no claw marks on the bones and there are no signs of mauling. I find that interesting. North is associated with earth. I think it is because it's dark and dense. Darkness, like the earth, can be hard, if not impossible, to penetrate. As our own shadow is in the north, so too are the shadows of the earth. North is the place of the hereafter death. North is winter, where everything lies still and dormant, where all life and knowledge exist in a state of suspended animation, awaiting the hand of the Great Spirit to push forward and open a new beginning. North, well, isn't that the place of knowledge, teaching, balance, abundance, sacred wisdom, thankfulness? Don't forget about that. Drawing forth inner treasures, empathic intuition, trust, and death to rebirth. If that isn't alchemy, by golly, I don't know what is. We are born in the east, we grow in the south, and it is in the west where we come to the autumn of our lives. Thus, we can see how the directions relate to all the different aspects, or many different aspects. The west is the accumulation of our goals, associated with death, but not in the way that most Western societies think of it. Death as the vital tool in the cycle of life. Death as that illumination, a pivotal point, a point from which the culmination of all knowledge can be drawn. When death, in some form, is achieved, only then can there be a new beginning which utilizes in its new growth the knowledge drawn from the past. West is the place of vision, dreams, quests and journeys, emotions, imagination, creative arts, the feminine, higher compassion, spiritual renewal. But I did say this was about South. didn't I? So what are the attributes solely for South? Well, we've covered a few. It's the element of fire. You know the spirit keeper is Shaman. The animal spirit guardian is the coyote. It's a place of impermanence, of conflict, death, fear, health, power, anger, adapt, strength. It's midday. The lessons on the South in the medicine wheel from the edge to the center are love, trust, and growth. This is where a lot of the animal nations stand. This is the place of connected awareness. Summer solstice, flowering, fruit, youth to young adult. What are the moons? Strong moon, ripe berries moon, harvest moon. What is the moon phase? Full. This is the place of awareness, our high energy, empowering, mysteries, fire magic, expanding the mind, otherworldly travel, those shamanic journeys, progressing and being present, generative energy, decline, color, red, orange. Now, you may find this a little bit silly, but I like the peacock for the South. I like the goddess of 1,000 eyes. I like the myths and the stories and the metaphors of the peacock. It suits me well for a South. Citrine, amethyst, and red jasper are the stones that I work with. The plant is cedar. The smudges are cedar, red willow, fungus, and myrrh. Red willow fungus is one word. Well, 3 words, but 1 phrase. That imagination, the inner spiritual renewer. And as we move from the South to the Southwest, our actions and definitions have turned inward to self-concept and ancestors, to emergence. Each element and direction, as you've learned here and as you know in your own way, teaches us discipline in a different way. East encourages me to hold on to my dreams. South, fight for my dreams. West, dream my dreams. And North, discipline my dreams, structures and understanding. South, it is warm and fiery, but not without its own unique lessons. Shamanese coyote spirit has shown me, as I've shared before, that mouse walks with the coyote. It is the place of the warrior, that which I've gone on quite a bit, the young child growing and learning. South is the land of laughter. The hot days of summer make us think more of the fire of the sun. And I live in central Alberta, and the consensus is any part of the country that is south is usually hotter. However, in my southern hemisphere friends, you may have earth in the south and fire in the north. And your north may be the rapid time of growth, where our south is the rapid time of growth. Where I live, we have a boreal forest, and it has a relatively short growing season. So fire often as well comes through, but fire has a short lifespan. Unlike air, fire leaves nothing untouched. The spirit of fire has many forms: electricity, the engine of your vehicle, the fire in the pit behind your house, the fever running through your body. Fire itself can even be patient. And I wanted to just say that even though fire has a short lifespan, in some regards it has a short lifespan, but there are times when the fire goes deep into the earth. And I know in the spring we often have fires that have emerged out of muskeg or deep in the soil. So we know there that even in the deepest places of the earth, even in the darkest places of the earth and the moistest places of the earth, fire can burn even in the coldest of the winter and in the warming of the soil in the spring, emerges as a grass fire, emerges as a ground fire. So there is the aspect of fire that remains hidden and is that sudden explosion or that sudden smoldering that comes about. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that. South, in its patience, teaches us to be aware of the interconnectedness of all things, a new lesson for many working on the southern part of the wheel. The most important lesson Shaudinese has taught me is to laugh at myself. It demands that I don't take myself too seriously, and trust me, on more than one occasion I've taken myself just a little bit too seriously, especially when I was first on this path. Fire within the earth, or the flame spreading across the forest and the plains, is transformative. But it can be much more violent, or perhaps volatile, than that of the wind. It personifies the dynamism of energy of nature, the way it dances, never in the same place at the same time, never really tameable, only cooperative in small places. Left to itself, it can grow or die. It has its own destiny. It bonds to what it will or breaks from bonds. It can be fiercely loyal or sudden in its escape to freedom. Lessons of the South need to include relationships, trust, innocence, the loss of innocence, the shadow side, vulnerability. What is a warrior without the strength of vulnerability? Courage, purification, self, will, drive. Don't forget the humor. Don't forget the cleverness of the fox. Don't forget to keep the faith. And don't forget the spirit. The funny thing is that fire can be so gentle, it's fragile, and yet so drastic. Like air, it has its polarities and the grays in between. But the south of the medicine wheel contains much more than just fire. On the south of the wheel, we have in the southeast the lessons of the ancestors and the lessons of protection. We have knowledge. In the southwest, we have the dreamers, the lines of creation, the lesson of sharing. Take the medicine wheel into 3 different parts, and if we turned it up so that its polarities are north and south instead of just a flat. So let's not take it 2D, let's make it 3D. So if the medicine wheel now is 3D, the upper portion of it not only is that north of the wheel, but it's also the upper world. It's also the consciousness. If we divide it into 3 layers of the upper world, and then that middle world, place of limbic consciousness, that place just between consciousness and personal unconscious. South on that 3D, or we head into the bottom of it, that is the underworld. That is our collective unconscious. This is our inner world. We're the places of the north in that 3D world we're looking at. That's the outer world. So in the south of the wheel, this is where we learn those places of dreams. This is that collective unconscious. Where is the ego? How do we leave our mark? How do we grow up? How do we awaken? What is the relationship to the physical body? How do we connect to others? What is that emotional part of ourselves? What is that understanding? How do we gain wisdom? What is reflection? The 3 moons that are in the wheel, what do we learn in those 3 moons? What are the animals in 3 moons? The south of the wheel, it heads from equinox to equinox. It comes across the plains. It comes across from gathering light and light into the illusions, and the illusions being cast away from us as we move from the south into the west. The south of the medicine wheel gives us the strength of the courage and the passion of the self. If we look at it in the 3D and we see the south as the underworld, then we see the ability to move within the depths of the self. We can move in all places in the south, in the middle world, the upper world, and the underworld. If we bring in the element of fire, we can have light wherever we go in the underworld. It doesn't matter. We can call upon light. Many times I've had people who have darkness, who don't have a concept of a mythical language. So I give them something very simple. It's very, very dark in here. So I say, oh, reach out your left hand. Can you feel the light switch? Yes, I can. Good. Turn on the light. The ability to talk to people who don't have a mythic language, who are very literal, using your imagination, using your creativity to find a language and a voice that people can understand. Because not everybody speaks your language. You don't speak my language all the time, and I don't speak your language all the time. Communication, that's all part of growing up. Wisdom, reflection. We cannot get to wisdom without knowledge. We cannot get to knowledge without experience. We cannot get to experience if we don't grow up old enough to realize we want experience. All of those aspects are combined. When we look into the depths of the spirit world in the South, what rests in the South for you? What are the lessons that you're going to raise for yourself? Maybe you don't want to be a warrior. Maybe you want to be a healer. So you learn plant medicine. You learn the plants that grow best in the bright sun, as well as those that at night that grow the highest during the dark times of the summer season. Much like corn and tobacco, they grow opposite of one another. One is a daytime grower, one is a nighttime grower, but they're both effectively south. What are the opposites that we can see in the fire? What are the opposites of south? If we take the lessons of the South in and of themselves, love, trust, and growth. You cannot grow without trust, and you cannot love without trust. In order to grow, we grow our trust. So that's the first step. From the outer wheel to the inner wheel is growth. We grow. The next step is trust. And from trust, we step into love. And then from love, we step into the center, connected awareness. This higher energy, the full moon magic, the fire magic. What were the 3 moons? Remember? The strong sun, the ripe berries, the harvest moon. And what are the animals associated with them? You know what they are. And what is that generative energy? And why do I say decline? We are declining in the light of the day. We are declining in our age. Our age is growing, but our physical health may declining. Our physical strength may decline. Our tenacity, our ability to say ginsei nai, never say die, that wanes a bit. You learn patience because you don't have the speed, the fire, and the intensity that perhaps you did at 20. And I'm not saying you don't have speed, fire, and intensity as you age by any stretch of the imagination. I don't wish to preach ageism. South is a place of contradictions and conflicts. It's hard to grow. It's hard to transform. It's hard to take the chaos and transform it into structure. It's hard to be in that place where we enter the afterlife into life. And when we move from the life, then we move into the maturity stave. And from maturity stave, then we move along the medicine wheel. Have you put in your own stones? Have you put in citrine? I love the amethyst. I love red jasper. Those are mine. I have talked about the four plants in the 4 directions. And for me, cedar is in the south. We really do move from south to southwest with actions and definitions. We do move inward to self-concept. And we do have a place of emergence. South teaches us to grow in our experience and never give up in our experience. Even if death comes in the time of South, that young youth, I've seen many of my friends and my own siblings cut down very young in age. Their lessons and the loss of their life on the south of the wheel has given me lessons of grief, and my grief informs my emotional intelligence. My grief informs my walk to west. My grief informs my Samhain moons. My grief informs my crone. In this place of south, whether we have that constant growth, the constant sun, we also recognize in that place of decline, what we have seen as great abundance and harvest can also become the dwindling, the loss of things. In the underworld, if we equate it with the consciousness in that collective unconscious, we live into that interrelationship between human and between spirit, and the interrelationship between human and animals and all of the other things that are shamanism and animism that are just kind of tied up into one. Most of these things that I share with you today, I've picked up because I walked along the South. I picked up understanding, compassion, because when I entered in the South, I wasn't a compassionate person. At least it wasn't something I expressed, experienced, or at least even held. I sure as the dickens didn't think that vulnerability had any strength. Man, was I taught wrong. I learnt to throw away and to let the fires of my soul burn away the roots that entangled me, the lessons that no longer served me, helped me to burn away the lessons of pain that were seared behind my eyes and in my heart. Same as the pain that lives in your eyes, your mind, and your heart. I can't be alone in this. I know I'm not alone in this. South is the pathway for the strong. South is the pathway of compassion to aid those who are not as strong in their inner journey, if you can, to reach out and lend your hand and be a part and parcel to their journey, their recognition, their strength, the gaining of their warrior self, whatever that looks like. And even if a person's time is incredibly short on this earth, I know with my own siblings that died of terminal illness, they spun around the medicine wheel in reflection of an older woman, not in the reflection of a child, much quicker than I did. I know that 2 of my siblings were further on the medicine wheel by the time they died than I was by the time I was 20. So they already encompassed, especially one of them really encompassed the lessons of West, really taught me the lessons of soul and spirit in her incredibly young life. All that I share with you are things that the South has asked me to reflect upon. It is by encouraging our relationship, by encouraging step one foot in front of the other. How do we explore the underworld? What are the journeys that we can do in the South? What are the journeys that we can do for ourselves to gain wisdom and information and knowledge? How do we gain that? What does that collective unconscious hold for you? What are the lessons that the collective unconscious can hold for you? Do you know how to move into it? Do you know where your personal unconscious lies and how between the middle world, the upper world, and the underworld, personal unconscious plays such a delicate role? In the east to the south of the wheel, we learn so many different things. We are aligned with protection. We are aligned with consciousness and spirit. The south of the wheel challenges us, but it also gives us the strength to move in a direction even when we're uncomfortable. It is that discomfort that we are trying to avoid as much as possible. The burning sensations of fire don't get easier as you age. You're just more conscious of them, I guess would be the best way to put it. The lessons of the South are going to be as individual and personal as each set of ears listening to my voice today. What your role is going to be informed by the other places on the wheel you've been, the other lessons you've incorporated. If you have another spiritual tradition that you practice, and this is just something that is a curiosity for you, shamanism or the medicine wheel or even fire, does this apply to anything that you're learning? If you have a practice that is focused more in animism, can some of these words speak to you? If you have a practice that is informed primarily from Buddhism, are there aspects of fire that you could share or that you know in your own place? In the South is that inner world, underworld, that collective unconscious. This is our own interpersonal awareness, connection of everything, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and never, ever, ever forget the ancestors. I know I only spoke about the 4, and I rarely teach about the 5th, but the body of the ancestors is just as important as the 4 other bodies. I think I've gone on long enough. I will allow your ears to rest from my voice. To my constant listener, thank you for sticking with me. To my semi-constant listener, welcome back to the podcast, and thank you for staying to the bitter end. To my brand new listener, to you, a very, very warm thank you for sticking all the way to the end. I look forward to seeing you March 1st for the workshop, The Daily Tools of Shamanism. If you haven't already signed up, please do. It'll be an exciting time for all of us. Well, it is for me, because I like sharing information and knowledge. Until next time, sayonara.
Thank you again for listening to the Shaman's Way podcast. If you'd like to give Kriket a thank you for all the hard work she's done in putting 135 episodes together, please do consider going to your podcast listener of choice and leaving a review and 5 stars. It really does help us reach more people.